Hey, a whole lot of news to dive into today here on Cronkite Sports Now. Thanks for joining us. I'm Scotty Gainge. Here's the stories we're tracking this afternoon. Today on Cronkite Sports Now, we catch up with Governor Doug Ducey and get his thoughts on California's law, which will affect college athletics. A busy bye week ahead for ASU as they welcome some special visitors to the Valley, and Suns have hit the high road in Flagstaff for training camp. These stories and more coming your way on Cronkite Sports Now. Good afternoon. Appreciate you joining us here on Cronkite Sports Now as we begin our show with some breaking news in the Valley. The Arizona Cardinals have announced that team owner Bill Bidwill passed away this morning at the age of 88. Bidwill spent more than 80 years as a Cardinal and was as connected to the organization and the Sea of Red as anyone. The Cards released a video tribute this morning in his honor.
William V. Bidwill was born in Chicago, Illinois on July 31st, 1931. When his father, Charles, purchased the Cardinals in 1932, it began a lifelong connection to the team that would span more than 8 decades, first as a ball boy and ultimately as the team's owner. A graduate of both Georgetown Prep and Georgetown University, Mr. B was very proud of his Jesuit education, as well as his service in the United States Navy. He was even more devoted to Nancy, his wife of 56 years, who passed away in 2016. Their family eventually grew to include 5 children, 10 grandchildren, and 1 great-grandchild. A commitment to diversity in hiring practices and a dedication to quiet, under-the-radar philanthropy were hallmarks of Mr. B's tenure with the Cardinals. While we mourn his passing, we know that his legacy will live on among all of us whose lives are better for having known him. Rest in peace, Mr. B.
Yesterday, we reported on a law signed into action by California Governor Gavin Newsom. California's Fair Pay to Play Act will make it possible for NCAA student athletes to earn money off their name and likeness. Now, the piece of legislation has garnered mixed reactions across the country, and now Governor Doug Ducey is weighing in on the issue. As Brady King for Cronkite News caught the first reaction from the governor.
Well, I am a college football and basketball fan. I love college sports. I love amateur sports. I want to make sure that there's a proper care for these young people so that they can participate in the game that they love. I don't want to see a state, especially California, have a competitive advantage on Arizona. I don't think there should be a race among governors to outbid each other. I think this is a national issue. It's why we call it a national championship. It's why we call it the National Collegiate Athletic Association. I'd like to see some leadership from that association. I know that Gavin Newsom has signed a law that's gone into effect. I want to make sure we protect what's special and unique about college sports and address some of these issues as well.
So the California law won't go into full effect until 2023, but with at least 10 states, including similar legislations, including Washington and Colorado, the Pac-12 Conference did release a statement earlier this week stating that the bill has, quote, very significant negative consequences, end quote. And the Arizona State Sun Devils moved to 4-1 and are now sitting pretty in their bye week. But as Cronkite News reporter Brady King explains, there may not be a game, but it's full steam ahead at Sun Devil Stadium.
Although it's bye week, it's still pretty busy in Tempe.
We have some distractions that are looming. HBO will be here next Sunday. The Atlanta Falcons will be here for a week on Monday. So there's a lot of things swirling right now that we got to make sure we don't get caught up in all that stuff and just focus on what we need to do to get better this next 7 weeks. So that's kind of where we're at.
Despite distractions, ASU's main focus is preparing to beat Washington State, a team that will be hungry to get their first Pac-12 win when they step foot into Sun Devil Stadium next weekend. In Tempe, I'm Brady King, Cronkite News.
Pretty exciting. ASU's HBO debut is set for Wednesday, October 16th. And while the Sun Devils will not be playing to win this week on their bye, the Arizona Cardinals will continue their quest to grab their first victory of 2019 as they are preparing to take a trip to another fellow winless squad in the Cincinnati Bengals. And as the Cliff Kingsbury air raid offense has shown energy and promise, they may be missing a spark plug this Sunday, with news of wide receiver Christian Kirk suffering from a possible serious ankle injury.
He's a dynamic player and has really had a great start to this season, and so you hate it for him. But we'll continue to find answers and do whatever we need to do to keep the thing rolling.
So supposing Kirk does not play, and with the Cards releasing veteran wideout Michael Crabtree last week, the offense will really have to rely even more so on Larry Fitzgerald, with kickoff set for 10 a.m. from Paul Brown Stadium. So we spoke earlier about the state courts in our show, but how about action on the courts? Let's take a trip up to the high road with Cronkite sports reporter Lamar Smith.
Yesterday at day one of Suns training camp, I talked to Ricky Rubio about how he plans to be a mentor on this team and how he plans to help the young point guards develop their games.
Well, I was in their spot like 4, 5, 6 years ago where I have older point guards and I have all kind of point guards, but at the same time I learn from the best and try to give them the advice that I got, the one I use the most, and I want them to be themselves.
Thanks, Lamar. With the Suns up in Flagstaff, stay tuned right here on Cronkite Sports Now for more coverage throughout this week's for the Suns training camp. And that does it for today's edition of Cronkite Sports Now. For Arizona sports stories from around the valley, visit the Cronkite Sports tab on arizonasports.com. And as always, for top Arizona news stories, head over to our website at cronkitenews.azpbs.org and be sure to tune in tonight at 5 p.m. on Arizona PBS for our nightly newscast. So on behalf of the entire Cronkite Sports Now crew, thank you for joining us. We'll be back here tomorrow, same time, same place.